I stood in the courtroom, my heart racing as I faced my brother for the first time since the incident. The judge's words echoed in my mind. Your brother is accused of holding your inhaler hostage, putting your life at risk. I took a deep breath, remembering the day my brother's actions changed everything. It was a day that started like any other, but ended with me fighting for air, but him fighting for control. As I looked around the courtroom, I noticed the wooden benches, the quiet murmurs of the people waiting for their cases to be heard, and the sunlight streaming through the windows. It was a peaceful scene, but my mind was anything but peaceful. I was reliving the moments that led me to this point, the moments that made me realize that my brother's actions were not just a joke, but a desperate cry for help. I thought back to the times when my brother would mock my asthma, when he would tease me about my inhaler. I thought I was just being sensitive, that I was overreacting. But now I realize that those moments were the beginning of a pattern of behavior that would eventually escalate into something much more sinister. The judge's voice brought me back to the present, and I focused on the words he was saying. Your brother's actions were not just a prank and a serious offense that put your life at risk. I felt a surge of emotions, a mix of anger, fear, and sadness. I was angry that my brother could be so reckless, so cruel. I was afraid of what could have happened if I hadn't gotten help in time. And I was sad that it had come to this, that our relationship had been damaged beyond repair. As I looked at my brother, I saw a person who was struggling to come to terms with his own actions. He was shaking slightly, his eyes cast down at the floor. He knew that he had gone too far, that he had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I felt a pang of sadness, knowing that our relationship would never be the same again. The prosecutor began to question me, asking me to recount the events of that day. I took a deep breath, trying to remember every detail. I told them about the morning, about how my brother had been acting strangely confident. I told them about the asthma attack, about how he had crouched down beside me, dangling my inhaler just out of reach. I told them about the words he had said, the words that had cut deep into my soul. I don't have asthma, so you're not allowed to have it either.
As I spoke, I could feel the weight of the courtroom's attention on me. The judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, they were all listening intently, their faces somber. My brother's eyes were still cast down. But I could sense his gaze on me, his eyes boring into my skin. The prosecutor finished questioning me, and the defense attorney began his cross-examination. He asked me about my relationship with my brother, about whether I had ever felt threatened by him before. I told him about the times my brother had mocked my asthma, about the times he had tried to control me. I told him about the day he had hidden my inhaler, about how I had felt a sense of fear and vulnerability. As the defense attorney continued to question me, I began to feel a sense of frustration. I felt like he was trying to shift the blame, to make me out to be the victim. But I knew that I wasn't the victim, I was the survivor. I was the one who had fought for my life, who had fought for my right to breathe. The defense attorney finished his questioning, and the prosecutor began his closing statement. He summarized the evidence, emphasizing the severity of my brother's actions. He talked about the impact it had on me, about the fear and the anxiety that I still felt. He talked about the need for justice, for accountability. As the prosecutor spoke, I felt a sense of closure. I felt like I was finally being heard, like my voice was finally being acknowledged. I looked over at my brother, and I saw a person who was broken, who was defeated. He knew that he had lost, that he had gone too far. The judge began to speak, his voice calm and measured. He talked about the severity of the offense, about the need for punishment. He talked about the impact it had on me, about the need for justice. And then, he delivered the verdict: counseling, community service, a restraining order, and a criminal record. As I left the courtroom, I felt a sense of relief. I felt like I had finally found justice, like I had finally found my voice. I held my inhaler tightly in my hand, feeling a sense of security and comfort. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, feeling alive. I walked out of the courtroom, into the bright sunlight. I felt a sense of peace, a sense of closure. I knew that I would never forget what had happened. But I also knew that I would never let it define me. I was a survivor, a fighter. And I would always stand up for myself, no matter what. As I walked away from the courthouse, I couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought me here. I thought about the struggles I had faced, the obstacles I had overcome. I thought about the people who had supported me, who had stood by me through thick and thin. And I thought about my brother, about the choices he had made, about the consequences he would face. I realized that my brother's actions had been a wake-up call, a reminder that I deserved to be treated with respect and dignity. I deserved to be loved and supported, not mocked and belittled. And I deserved to have my voice heard, to have my story told. As I looked back on the events of the past few months, I saw a pattern emerging. I saw a pattern of behavior that was not just about my brother, but about the people around me. I saw a pattern of enabling, of excusing, of ignoring. And I saw a pattern of silence, of not speaking out, of not standing up for myself. But I also saw a pattern of strength, of resilience, of determination. I saw a pattern of survival, of fighting back, of refusing to be defeated. And I saw a pattern of hope, of healing, of moving forward. As I walked away from the courthouse, I felt a sense of hope. I felt like I was starting a new chapter, a new journey. I felt like I was leaving the past behind, and embracing the future. And I felt like I was finally finding my voice, finally standing up for myself. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs. I felt alive, I felt free. And I knew that I would always be okay, no matter what. I had taken back my breath, and I had taken back my life. I still remember the smell of freshly baked cookies wafting from our kitchen, the sound of my brother's laughter as we played hide and seek in the backyard, and the feeling of his small hand in mine as we walked to school together. Those were the carefree days of my childhood, a time when my biggest worry was what game we'd play at recess or what book I'd read before bed. My mother worked tirelessly to provide for us, often juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet. While my father was absent, a distant figure who occasionally sent letters or made promises he couldn't keep. As a result, I took on a lot of responsibility, becoming a surrogate parent to my younger brother, making sure he got to school on time, helping him with his homework, and comforting him when he was scared or hurt. As I look back, I realized that my brother's dependence on me was rooted in his own insecurities and fears. He was a sensitive child, often feeling overwhelmed by the world around him, and I did my best to shield him from the harsh realities of life. I remember the countless nights I'd stay up late, reading him stories, singing him lullabies, and reassuring him that everything would be okay. My mother would often thank me for being such a responsible and caring sibling, and I felt proud to be able to help. But as time went on, I began to notice subtle changes in my brother's behavior. He'd become more clingy, more demanding, and more prone to outbursts when he didn't get his way. At first, I brushed it off as typical childhood behavior. But as the years passed, these traits only intensified. He'd make jokes about my asthma, teasing me about my inhaler, and saying things like, "You're so weak, you can't even breathe without that thing." I'd laugh it off, not wanting to make a big deal out of it, and deep down, it hurt. I ignored it, though, because I loved him. Because I wanted to believe that he didn't mean to hurt me. But the truth is, his words and actions were like tiny cracks in the foundation of our relationship, slowly eroding the trust and bond we once shared. As we grew older, my brother's behavior became more erratic. He'd lash out at me, at our mother, and even at himself, often for no apparent reason. I'd try to calm him down, to reason with him. But it was like trying to hold water in my hands. The more I tried to grasp it, the more it slipped away. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing when he'd explode again. And yet, despite all this, I still felt responsible for him, like I had to protect him from himself. I'd make excuses for his behavior, telling myself that he was just stressed or tired, that he didn't mean to hurt me. But the truth is, I was scared. I was scared of what he might do next, of how he might hurt me or himself. One of the most vivid memories I have of this time is of a family vacation we took to the beach. My brother was in one of his moods, sulking and refusing to participate in any of the activities. I tried to coax him out of his shell, to get him to join us for a game of beach volleyball or a swim in the ocean. But he just sat there, brooding, his eyes fixed on some point in the distance. I felt a pang of sadness, of worry, wondering what was going on inside his head, what was causing him so much pain. And as I looked at him, I realized that I'd been so focused on taking care of him, on being his rock, that I'd forgotten to take care of myself. As the years went by, my brother's dependence on me only grew stronger. He'd call me multiple times a day, needing reassurance, needing validation, needing someone to talk to. And I'd answer, every time, because I felt like I had to, like I was the only one who could calm the storm inside him. But it was exhausting, draining, and slowly, it began to take a toll on my own mental and emotional health. I felt like I was drowning in his needs, like I was losing myself in the process of trying to save him. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to cut him off, to set boundaries. Because I loved him, because I wanted to believe that he'd eventually get better, that he'd eventually learn to manage his emotions, to take care of himself. Looking back, I realized that my brother's behavior was a classic case of emotional manipulation. He'd use guilt, anger, and self-pity to control me, to get me to do what he wanted. And I, naive and loving, would fall for it every time. But as I grew older, I began to see the patterns, to recognize the signs. I started to understand that his behavior wasn't just about him, it was about me, too. It was about how I felt, how I reacted, and how I enabled him. And that's when things started to shift, when I started to take a step back, to reevaluate our relationship. When to prioritize my own needs. It's funny, because as I look back on those years, I realized that I was so focused on my brother's problems, on his pain and his struggles, that I forgot to look at my own. I forgot to examine my own feelings, my own needs, and my own desires. And that's when I started to lose myself, to disappear into the role of caregiver, of protector, of fixer. But as I slowly began to reclaim my own identity, my own sense of self, I started to see that I wasn't alone. I started to see that there were others out there, others who'd been through similar experiences, who'd been manipulated and controlled by those they loved. And that's when I started to find my voice, to speak up, to set boundaries. It wasn't easy. And it wasn't quick. It took time, patience, and practice. But as I looked in the mirror, as I saw the person staring back at me, I realized that I deserved better. I deserved to be loved, to be respected, and to be treated with kindness. And as I started to stand up for myself, as I started to prioritize my own needs, I saw my brother's behavior change, too. He started to realize that he couldn't control me, that he couldn't manipulate me into doing what he wanted. And slowly, he started to take responsibility for his own actions, for his own emotions. It's a strange feeling, looking back on those years, on the struggles and the pain. It's like watching a movie, a movie that's both familiar and foreign. I see the characters, the scenes, the plot twists. And I remember the emotions, the feelings, the sensations. But I also see the flaws, the mistakes, the missteps. And I realize that it's okay to make mistakes, to stumble, to fall. Because that's where the growth happens, that's where the learning happens. And as I close my eyes, as I take a deep breath, I feel a sense of peace, a sense of closure. I feel like I've finally found my voice, my strength, and my sense of self. And I know that no matter what happens next, I'll be okay, because I've learned to breathe, to live. Because to love again. As I sat in the courtroom, reflecting on the journey that had brought me to this moment, I couldn't help but think about the subtle signs that had hinted at my brother's growing need for control. It's funny how, in hindsight, the red flag seems so obvious, but at the time, I just thought he was being a sibling, teasing me about my asthma and my inhaler. I remember the way he'd make jokes about me needing my magic wand to breathe, or how he'd pretend to take my inhaler away, laughing as I chased him around the house. At first, it was all just a game, a way for him to assert his dominance over me, but as we grew older, his behavior began to shift. He started to crave control in more subtle ways, making comments about my asthma, about how I was weak, or how I needed to toughen up. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself that he was just joking, but deep down, I knew something was off. I knew that his words, his actions, were starting to take a toll on me, making me feel like I was somehow less than him. I think back to our childhood, to the way we'd spend hours playing together, laughing and exploring the world around us. My brother was always a sensitive kid, prone to mood swings and tantrums, but I never thought much of it. I just assumed that he was still learning, still growing, and that with time, he'd outgrow those behaviors. But as we entered our preteen years, his sensitivity began to morph into something else, something that looked more like a need for dominance. He'd get angry if things didn't go his way. If I didn't do what he wanted, if I didn't agree with him. And I, being the older sibling, would often give in, just to avoid conflict, just to keep the peace. But looking back, I realized that I was ignoring the warning signs, ignoring the fact that my brother's behavior was becoming more and more controlling. I was so focused on being a good sister, on being supportive and loving, that I didn't see the red flags waving right in front of me. I didn't see that his jokes, his teasing, were actually a way of asserting his power over me, of making me feel small and insignificant. And I certainly didn't see that his behavior would one day escalate into something much more sinister. As I reflect on those early years, I'm struck by the subtle ways in which my brother's need for control began to manifest. It was never overt, never obvious, but rather a slow, insidious creep into our relationship. He'd make comments about my asthma, about how I was lucky to have such a great sister to take care of me, or how I was weak for needing my inhaler. And I, not wanting to rock the boat, would just smile and nod, pretending that his words didn't hurt. But they did hurt, they hurt deeply. And they made me feel like I was somehow less than him, like I was somehow broken. I remember one time, we were at the park, playing on the swings. And my brother started teasing me about my inhaler. He said that I was a baby for needing it, that I was weak for not being able to breathe on my own. And I, feeling embarrassed and ashamed, just took it, just absorbed his words like a sponge. But looking back, I realized that was a turning point, a moment when I should have spoken up. When I should have told him that his words were hurtful, that they were unacceptable. But I didn't, I just let it slide. And that's when the pattern began, the pattern of him asserting his control over me, and me letting him. It's funny how, in hindsight, it all seems so clear, so obvious. But at the time, I just thought I was being a good sister, just thought I was being supportive and loving. I didn't see the warning signs, didn't see the red flags waving right in front of me. And that's what makes it all so tragic, so heartbreaking. Because if I had seen, if I had known, maybe things would have turned out differently. Maybe my brother wouldn't have felt the need to assert his control over me. Maybe he wouldn't have felt the need to take my inhaler hostage. But that's a story for another time, a story that I'll get to soon enough. For now, let's just say that those early warning signs, those subtle hints of my brother's growing need for control, they were just the beginning. They were just the start of a long, winding road that would eventually lead us to the courtroom, to the moment when my brother's behavior would be put on trial. And when I would finally find the courage to stand up for myself, to take back my breath, and to reclaim my life. But that's a story that's still unfolding, a story that's still being written, and one that I'll continue to share with you. And we journey through the twists and turns of my life, and the events that led me to this moment, to this courtroom. And to this chance to finally take back my breath. I still hear the sound of my own ragged breathing, the feeling of my lungs burning. And the panic that set in as I realized my inhaler was nowhere to be found. It was a moment that would change everything, a moment that would make me question the very foundation of my relationship with my brother. He had hidden it, tucked it away in some clever spot, all as a joke, or so he claimed. I remember the feeling of desperation that washed over me as I frantically searched every room, every drawer, every possible hiding spot. My heart was racing, my vision was blurring, and I could feel my airways constricting. It was a mild attack, but it was terrifying nonetheless. As I look back, I realized that I didn't tell anyone about that incident. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, didn't want to worry my mother or make my brother feel bad. I just wanted to forget it ever happened, to chalk it up to a one-time mistake. But deep down, I knew that it wasn't just a joke. I knew that my brother's actions were a cry for attention, a cry for control. He had always been a bit of a wild card, a bit of a prankster. But this was different. This was a deliberate attempt to exert power over me, to make me feel vulnerable and scared. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself that it was just a phase, that he would grow out of it. But the truth is, it was just the beginning of a pattern. A pattern of behavior that would escalate over time, a pattern that would leave me feeling anxious and on edge. I started to notice that my brother would often make jokes about my asthma, about my inhaler, about my health in general. He would tease me about being weak, about being fragile. And at first, I laughed it off, I played along. But as time went on, I started to realize that his words were laced with a venom that was designed to make me feel small and insignificant. I remember one time, we were at the park, and I had a particularly bad attack. My brother just stood there, watching me, as I struggled to breathe. He didn't offer to help, he didn't offer to get me my inhaler. He just stood there, a smirk on his face. As if he was enjoying the show. It was a moment that made me feel so alone, so scared. And it was a moment that made me realize that my brother's actions were not just harmless pranks, but a deliberate attempt to hurt me, to control me. As I look back, I realized that I was in denial. I didn't want to see the truth, didn't want to acknowledge the fact that my brother was capable of such cruelty. But the truth is, I was scared. I was scared of what he might do next, scared of what he might say next. And I was scared of being alone, of being vulnerable. I had always been the strong one, the one who took care of my brother, who protected him. But now, I felt like I was the one who needed protection. It's funny, isn't it? How we can be so blind to the truth, so blind to the reality of our own lives. We can be so caught up in our own emotions, our own fears, that we fail to see the warning signs. We fail to see the red flags that are waving right in front of us. And it's only when it's too late, only when the damage is done, that we realize the truth. The truth that our brother, our loved one, is capable of hurting us, of controlling us. But I'm not going to lie, it's hard to admit. It's hard to admit that the person you love, the person you trust, is capable of such cruelty. It's hard to admit that you've been blind, that you've been in denial. But it's the first step towards healing, towards recovery. And it's the first step towards taking back control, towards reclaiming your life. I took a deep breath, and let the memories wash over me. Memories of my brother, of our childhood, of our laughter and our tears. Memories of the good times. And the bad. And as I exhaled, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of closure. I realized that I had been living in fear, living in denial, for far too long. And I realized that it was time to take back control, to reclaim my life. But as I stood there, lost in thought, I couldn't shake the feeling that my brother's actions were not just a cry for attention, but a symptom of something deeper. Something that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but something that I knew was there, lurking just beneath the surface. And it was that feeling, that sense of unease, that made me wonder what was really going on, what was really driving my brother's behavior. Was it just a desire for control? Or was it something more? Something that I had yet to uncover. As I look back on those pivotal teenage years, I'm reminded of the subtle yet profound shift in dynamics between my brother and me. It's as if we were two planets, once aligned in our orbits, now drifting apart, each influenced by our own unique gravitational forces. I was entering a phase of self-discovery, navigating the complexities of adolescence, while my brother seemed to be surrendering to a darker, more turbulent energy. I recall the first time I witnessed him mock a classmate for their stutter. The way he ridiculed the poor kid, his voice dripping with disdain, made my skin crawl. I tried to brush it off as a phase, thinking that he'd eventually grow out of it, but the incidents escalated. But I found myself walking on eggshells around him. He'd tease animals, pulling their tails, and laugh as they yelped in pain. The sound of their distress still echoes in my mind, a haunting reminder of the cruelty that was taking hold of him. As I struggled to make sense of his behavior, I began to notice a change in the way he interacted with me. He'd make snide comments about my asthma, calling me weak and fragile. The words cut deep. But I tried to stay calm, thinking that he was just trying to get a rise out of me. I'd remind him of the times I'd taken care of him, nursed him back to health when he was sick, and comforted him when he was scared. But he'd just shrug it off, his expression a mask of indifference. One particular incident that stands out in my mind was when he decided to reorganize my room, tossing my belongings around like they were trash. I'd spent hours carefully arranging my books, my clothes, and my mementos, and he just swept in, destroying the sense of order I'd created. I was furious, but I tried to keep my cool, thinking that maybe he was just trying to assert his dominance. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw something that chilled me to the bone, a glint of pleasure, of enjoyment, at my expense. I began to feel like I was walking on a tightrope, balancing my own emotions, my own needs, against the constant threat of his outbursts. I'd find myself holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for him to unleash his anger, his frustration, on me. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, I couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility towards him. I'd taken care of him for so long, and I couldn't just abandon him now, no matter how difficult he was becoming. As the months passed, the incidents piled up, each one a small, incremental step towards a larger, more ominous reality. I'd try to talk to him, to reason with him. But he'd just shut me down, telling me I was being too sensitive or too dramatic. The words stung, but I knew I couldn't give up. I had to keep trying, keep reaching out, no matter how futile it seemed. And then, one day, something shifted inside me. I realized that I couldn't keep living in a state of constant anxiety, waiting for the next explosion, the next confrontation. I needed to find a way to protect myself, to shield myself from the toxic energy that was emanating from my brother. It was a small, tentative step, but it was the beginning of a journey towards self-preservation, towards reclaiming my own sense of identity, my own sense of purpose. As I look back on those tumultuous teenage years, I'm struck by the complexity, the nuance, of our relationship. It was a dance, a delicate, fraught dance, between two people, each trying to assert their own needs, their own desires, without destroying the other. And yet, despite the challenges, despite the conflicts, I know that I emerged from that period stronger, more resilient, more determined to forge my own path, my own way. But even as I reflect on those difficult times, I'm aware of a sense of disquiet, a sense of unease, that still lingers, like a shadow in the corner of my mind. It's a reminder that the past is never truly past, that the wounds we inflict on each other can take years, even decades, to heal. And as I prepare to face the next chapter in my journey, I know that I'll have to confront the consequences of my brother's actions. And the choices I made in response. The question is, will I be able to find the strength, the courage, to reclaim my life, my breath, and my sense of self, and will the shadows of the past continue to haunt me? I still remember the day everything changed, like it was etched in my memory forever. It started like any other day, with a quiet morning routine and a sense of normalcy that I had grown accustomed to. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the room, and the sound of birds chirping outside created a soothing melody. I woke up early, got dressed, and headed to the kitchen to start my day with a bowl of cereal and a glass of orange juice. My brother was already up, sitting at the table, staring at his phone with an intensity that made me feel like he was trying to will the screen to come to life. As I poured myself a bowl of cereal, I noticed that he seemed different, his confidence turned up a notch, and his eyes gleaming with a mischievous spark. He was always a bit of a wild card. But there was something about him that morning that made me feel like he was plotting something. I tried to brush it off, thinking that maybe he was just excited about something. But as I sat down next to him, I realized that he was staring at me with an unnerving intensity. It was as if he was trying to convey a message. But I had no idea what it was. The air in the room seemed to thicken, and I felt a shiver run down my spine as he slowly got up from his chair and walked over to my backpack, which was sitting on the floor. He rummaged through it, his hands moving with a deliberate slowness. And then, he pulled out my inhaler. My heart skipped a beat as he held it up, dangling it in front of me like a taunt. I felt a wave of panic wash over me, but I tried to stay calm, thinking that maybe he was just joking around. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw something there that made my blood run cold. He was enjoying this, reveling in the power he had over me. And it was like a switch had flipped, and he had become a different person. I tried to breathe, but my lungs felt like they were constricting. But my vision began to fade. I felt a sense of desperation wash over me, like I was drowning in a sea of panic. My brother's face was inches from mine, his eyes glinting with a cruel light, and I knew that I was in grave danger. He was holding my lifeline, my inhaler, and he was using it against me. The room seemed to spin around me, and I felt like I was going to pass out. I tried to speak, to beg him to give me my inhaler, but my voice was barely a whisper. He just smiled, a cold, calculating smile, and said, "I don't have asthma, so you're not allowed to have it either." It was like he had declared war on me. And I was his enemy. I felt a surge of fear, but also a sense of determination. I knew that I had to get my inhaler back, no matter what it took. As I sat there, frozen in terror, my brother's words hung in the air like a challenge. I felt like I was staring into the abyss, with no safety net to catch me if I fell. But then, something inside me shifted. I remembered all the times I had protected him, all the times I had been there for him. And I realized that I deserved better. I deserved to breathe, to live, to be free from his tyranny. And in that moment, something clicked. I knew that I had to take back control, to reclaim my life. And my inhaler. The silence that followed was deafening, a silence that was both oppressive and liberating. It was as if the whole world had come to a standstill, and all that mattered was the space between us. I felt like I was suspended in time, with no past, no future, just the present moment. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would not back down. I would not give in. I would fight for my right to breathe, to live, to be free. The question was, how would I do it? And as I sat there, my heart pounding in my chest, I knew that I was about to embark on a journey that would change my life forever. As I lay there, struggling to breathe, something inside me shifted. It was as if the desperation to inhale had awakened a part of me that I never knew existed. I realized that I had to take a stand and fight back, not just for my inhaler, but for my life, my freedom, but my right to breathe. The thought sent a surge of adrenaline through my veins, and for the first time, I saw my brother's actions for what they truly were, a blatant attempt to control me. I remembered all the times he had made jokes about my asthma, all the times he had teased me about being weak. But in that moment, I understood that it wasn't just about my condition, it was about his own insecurities, his own fears. He was trying to assert his dominance over me, to make himself feel stronger. But as I lay there, gasping for air, I knew that I wouldn't let him win. It was a moment of clarity, a moment when everything became crystal clear. I saw the pattern of behavior, the way he had been slowly escalating his actions over the years. I saw the way he had been manipulating me, using my asthma against me. And I knew that I had to put a stop to it. As I looked up at him, I saw the confidence in his eyes, the sense of power he felt over me. But I also saw something else, a glimmer of uncertainty, a hint of doubt. He was starting to realize that he had gone too far, that he had crossed a line. And in that moment, I knew that I had the upper hand. I took a deep breath, or at least, I tried to. My lungs were burning, my chest was tight, but I knew I had to keep going. I had to keep fighting. I looked my brother straight in the eye and said, "Give me my inhaler." My voice was calm, steady, but firm. I meant business. He hesitated, unsure of what to do. He had never seen me stand up to him like this before. He had never seen me assert myself, my needs, my rights. And for a moment, he was taken aback. He didn't know how to react. But then, something inside him snapped. He sneered at me, his face twisting in contempt. "You'll never get it," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You'll never be able to breathe without me." I felt a surge of fear, but I didn't back down. I knew that I had to keep pushing, keep fighting. I took another deep breath. Or at least, I tried to. And then, I made a decision that would change the course of our relationship forever. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I decided to seek help, to get out of the situation. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to do it. I was determined to take back control of my life, my freedom, and my right to breathe. As I looked at my brother, I saw the shock in his eyes. He had never expected me to stand up to him like this. He had never expected me to fight back. And in that moment, I knew that I had won. I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my right to breathe. But little did I know, this was just the beginning. The journey ahead would be long, difficult, and filled with twists and turns. But I was ready. I was ready to face whatever came next, to fight for my rights, and to take back my life. And as I lay there, struggling to breathe, I knew that I would never let anyone take my breath away from me again. I remember the day I decided to take a stand against my brother's actions like it was yesterday. The image of him holding my inhaler hostage, his eyes gleaming with a mix of cruelty and desperation, is still etched in my mind. But as I lay in the hospital bed, Recovering from the asthma attack he had triggered, I knew I had to take action. I couldn't just let him get away with it. So, I started by documenting every detail of the incident. I wrote down the time, the date, the exact words he had used, and the way he had looked at me with such disdain. I even drew a diagram of the room, marking the spot where he had stood, and the distance between us. It was a painstaking process, but I knew it was necessary. I was determined to build a case against him, to prove that his actions were not just a joke, but a calculated attempt to harm me. As I delved deeper into the past, browsing through old videos and screenshots, I realized that my brother's behavior was not just a one-time mistake. It was a pattern, a consistent display of cruelty and manipulation. I found messages he had sent me, mocking my asthma and making fun of my struggles. I saw videos of him teasing me and laughing at my expense. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. And I had ignored it for so long. But not anymore. I was determined to expose him, to show the world what he was really like. I started by filing a police report, walking into the station, and telling my story to a calm and sympathetic officer. I showed her the evidence I had gathered, and she listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each passing minute. It was a slow and painful process, but I knew it was necessary. As I waited for the police to take action, I told our mother what had happened. She was torn, caught between her love for both of us and her desire to protect us from harm. She listened to my story, her eyes filling with tears, and her face etched with concern. She asked me questions, gentle and probing, and I answered them, trying to convey the depth of my emotions. It was a difficult conversation, but I knew it was necessary. I needed her to understand, to see the truth, and to support me in my quest for justice. Our mother's reaction was not what I had expected. She was calm, but firm. But she listened to my story with a sense of detachment. She asked me questions, and I answered them, trying to convey the complexity of my emotions. She nodded, her eyes never leaving mine, and I could see the understanding dawning on her. She realized that my brother's actions were not just a joke, but a serious offense, but that I deserved justice. It was a moment of clarity, a moment of truth, and it changed everything. As I looked at my mother, I saw a mix of emotions on her face. There was sadness, regret, and a deep sense of concern. She was torn between her love for both of us and her desire to do what was right. She knew that my brother's actions were wrong, but she also knew that he was her son, but that she had a responsibility to protect him. It was a difficult position to be in, and I could see the weight of it bearing down on her. But as we talked, I could see the realization dawning on her. She understood that my brother's actions were not just a joke, but a serious offense, but that I deserved justice. She saw the evidence, the messages, the videos, and the screenshots, and she knew that I was telling the truth. She knew that my brother had been manipulating me, using my asthma against me, and that he had to be held accountable. As the days passed, I could see the change in my mother. She was no longer torn, no longer caught between her love for both of us. She had made a decision to support me, to stand by me, and to fight for justice. It was a moment of triumph, a moment of victory, and it gave me the strength to keep going. I knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that there would be obstacles and challenges. But I was ready, I was determined, and I was strong. I had my mother's support, and I had the truth on my side. I was no longer the vulnerable, helpless girl that my brother had exploited. I was a warrior, a fighter. And I was ready to take on the world. As I walked out of the courtroom, the warm sunlight on my face felt like a gentle hug, a sense of relief washing over me. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. And I knew that I had finally found my voice. The sound of the courtroom door closing behind me was like a punctuation mark, signaling the end of a chapter in my life. I looked down at the inhaler in my hand, a symbol of my newfound freedom. And I couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought me to this moment. My brother's behavior had shifted dramatically after the incident. He became more aggressive and defensive, like a cornered animal. He would lash out at me, at our mother, at anyone who would listen, trying to justify his actions. But I knew that his behavior was just a desperate attempt to distract from the truth. The truth was, he had crossed a line. And he knew it. I remembered the way he would look at me, his eyes flashing with anger and resentment. As if I was the one who had wronged him. The police had contacted us. And we had gone to court, a process that was both nerve-wracking and liberating. I had testified, recounting the incident in detail, my voice shaking at times. But my words clear and firm. The judge and the courtroom had reacted with shock and disgust, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. I had seen the doubt in their eyes, the uncertainty about how someone could be so cruel. And I knew that I had done the right thing. I recalled the feeling of my heart pounding in my chest as I spoke, the sound of my own voice echoing in my ears. And the sense of pride and empowerment that came with standing up for myself. As I looked back on that day, I realized that it was a turning point for me. It was the moment when I finally stood up for myself. When I refused to be a victim anymore. My brother's actions had been a wake-up call, a reminder that I deserved to be treated with respect and kindness. And as I walked away from the courtroom, I knew that I was ready to start a new chapter in my life, one where I was in control. Where I was free to breathe, to live, to be myself. The feeling of the sun on my skin, the sound of birds chirping in the distance. And the smell of freshly cut grass all combined to create a sense of peace and tranquility that I had never experienced before. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, a mix of relief, anger, and sadness. My brother's behavior continued to deteriorate. And he became increasingly isolated, refusing to accept responsibility for his actions. Our mother was torn between her two children, trying to make sense of the situation, trying to find a way to heal the wounds that had been inflicted. I remembered the way she would look at me, her eyes filled with tears and regret. And the way she would try to reach out to my brother, to bring him back from the brink. But I knew that it was too late, that the damage had been done. And that it would take time, effort, and patience to repair the relationships that had been broken. As I navigated this new reality, I began to realize that I had been living in a state of constant fear, always walking on eggshells, never knowing when my brother would lash out next. But now, with the court's decision, I felt a sense of security, a sense of protection. I knew that I had taken a stand, that I had fought for myself. And that I had won. The feeling of empowerment that came with this realization was overwhelming. And I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that I had never felt before. I thought back to the days when my brother and I were close. When we would play together, laugh together. When share our secrets. I remembered the way he would look up to me, the way he would seek my approval. And the way he would try to make me proud. But as he grew older, something inside of him changed. He became more aggressive, more controlling, and more manipulative. He would use my asthma against me, taunting me, teasing me, and making me feel like I was weak. I recalled the way he would say things like, "You're so fragile," or "You can't even take care of yourself," and the way those words would cut deep into my soul. but I had finally found my voice. And I was using it to speak out against the abuse, to speak out against the cruelty. I was using it to take back control, to reclaim my life, and to start anew. As I walked away from the courtroom, I felt a sense of closure, a sense of finality. I knew that I would never go back to the way things were before, that I would never again be held hostage by my brother's actions. I was free. And I was ready to start my new life, a life where I could breathe. And I could live. And where I could be myself. The sound of my own footsteps, the feeling of the wind in my hair, and the sight of the sun shining down on me all combined to create a sense of hope and renewal that I had never felt before. The aftermath of the court case was a time of healing and reflection for me. I had to come to terms with the fact that my brother had hurt me, that he had tried to destroy me. But I also had to acknowledge that I had played a role in enabling his behavior, that I had allowed him to walk all over me for far too long. I remembered the way I would try to placate him, to calm him down, and to avoid conflict. But I knew that those days were behind me now, and that I was ready to move on. As I looked to the future, I knew that I would face challenges, that I would face setbacks. But I also knew that I was strong, that I was resilient, and that I was capable of overcoming anything. I was ready to start my new life, a life where I could breathe, where I could live, where I could be myself. And as I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, I knew that I was finally free. The feeling of freedom was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And I could finally see a bright future ahead of me. I was excited to start this new chapter, to see what the future held, and to explore the possibilities that lay ahead. The sound of my own voice, the feeling of my heart beating in my chest, and the sight of the world stretching out before me all combined to create a sense of excitement and anticipation that I had never felt before. As I sat in the courtroom, the judge's voice echoed through the silent room, delivering the verdict that would change everything. My brother was sentenced to counseling, community service, and a restraining order. The words hung in the air, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I felt relief wash over me, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But alongside that relief, I couldn't help but feel a deep sadness. Sadness for the brother I once knew, for the relationship we once had. It was a bittersweet moment, one that marked the end of a chapter in my life. I glanced over at my brother, his eyes wide with shock, his face pale. He looked defeated, like the weight of his actions had finally sunk in. I remembered the boy he used to be, the one I had protected and cared for. It was hard to reconcile that image with the person standing before me now. He seemed so small, so broken. I felt a pang of guilt, wondering if I could have done something to prevent this. But as I looked deeper into his eyes, I saw something that gave me pause. I saw a glimmer of recognition, a realization that he had gone too far. It was a fleeting moment, but it was enough to make me understand that he finally grasped the gravity of his actions. The courtroom erupted into a gentle hum, the sound of papers shuffling and murmured conversations. I sat still, taking it all in. The judge's words still echoed in my mind, a reminder that justice had been served. But as I looked around the room, I knew that this was only the beginning. This was a new chapter, one that would require healing, growth, and redemption. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the struggles I had faced, and the lessons I had learned. I realized that I had been given a second chance, a chance to reclaim my life, my breath. As I stood up, my eyes met my mother's. She was tearful, her face etched with a mix of sadness and understanding. I knew that she was struggling to come to terms with the fact that her son had hurt me so deeply. But in that moment, I also saw a sense of acceptance, a recognition that justice had been served. We exchanged a gentle smile, a silent understanding that we would get through this together. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. It was a small moment. But it was a reminder that I was alive, that I was free. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, a mix of sadness, relief, and uncertainty. I struggled to come to terms with the fact that my brother was gone, that our relationship had been irreparably damaged. But as I looked back on the journey that had brought me here, I realized that I had been given a rare gift. I had been given the chance to see the truth, to understand that my brother's actions had been a cry for help, a desperate attempt to assert his control. It was a painful realization. But it was also a liberating one. I knew that I deserved better, that I deserved to be treated with love and respect. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It was a gentle, steady feeling, one that I had not experienced in a long time. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But I also knew that I was ready. I was ready to face whatever challenges came my way, to rebuild my life, and to reclaim my breath. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs. And I knew that I was finally free. The sound of my own breathing was like music to my ears, a reminder that I was alive, that I was strong. In the days that followed, I began to rebuild my life. I started taking small steps, reconnecting with old friends, and trying new things. It was a slow process. But it was also a necessary one. I knew that I couldn't change the past. But I could shape the future. I could create a new reality, one that was filled with love, laughter, and freedom. I thought about my brother, and the choices he had made. I realized that he had been given a chance to reflect on his actions, to seek help, and to grow. It was a difficult journey, but it was also a necessary one. As I looked back on the experience, I realized that it had taught me a valuable lesson. It had taught me that justice doesn't always have to be loud, that it can be gentle, steady, and inevitable. It had taught me that revenge doesn't have to be about hurting others, but about reclaiming our own power, our own voice. I thought about the nature of quiet revenge, and how it can be a powerful tool for healing. It's not about seeking revenge, but about seeking justice, about seeking peace. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs. And I knew that I had finally found my voice. I had finally found the strength to stand up for myself, to reclaim my life, and to reclaim my breath. The sound of my own breathing was like music to my ears, a reminder that I was alive, that I was strong. I knew that I would always carry the scars of my past with me. But I also knew that I had the power to shape my future. I had the power to create a new reality, one that was filled with love, laughter, and freedom. And as I walked away from the courtroom, I knew that I was ready to take on that challenge, to reclaim my life, and to reclaim my breath. As I walked out of the courtroom, the warm sunlight on my face felt like a gentle hug, a sense of relief washing over me. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. And I knew that I had finally found my voice. The sound of my own breathing was like music to my ears, a reminder that I was alive and free. I held my inhaler tightly in my hand, a symbol of my newfound independence. My mother was waiting for me outside, her eyes tearful but understanding. We hugged each other tightly, the tension and anxiety of the past few months melting away. We didn't need to say a word, our eyes locked in a moment of pure understanding. We both knew that this was just the beginning of our journey towards healing and rebuilding. As we walked away from the courthouse, I couldn't help but think about my brother. He had disappeared into his consequences, leaving me to pick up the pieces and move forward. I felt a mix of emotions, sadness, anger, and relief, all swirling together in a complex dance. But as I looked at my mother, I knew that I wasn't alone. We were in this together. And we would face whatever came next as a team. We started attending therapy sessions together, a safe space where we could talk about our feelings and work through our emotions. It wasn't easy. But it was a necessary step towards healing. My mother was struggling to come to terms with the fact that her son had hurt me so deeply. And I was struggling to forgive him. But as we talked and shared our stories, I began to realize that forgiveness wasn't about my brother, it was about me. It was about letting go of the pain and the anger. And finding peace. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I started to notice a change within myself. I was breathing more easily, my asthma attacks becoming less frequent. I was sleeping better, my mind no longer racing with anxiety and fear. I was starting to reclaim my life, my air, and my sense of self. I was learning to love myself, to care for myself, and to prioritize my own needs. But the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were days when I felt like giving up. When the pain and the anger seemed too much to bear. There were days when I felt like I was all alone, like I was the only one who understood what I was going through. But my mother was always there, a constant source of comfort and support. She reminded me that I was strong, that I was capable, and that I was worthy of love and respect. As I looked back on the past few months, I realized that I had been given a rare gift, the gift of perspective. I had been forced to confront my own vulnerabilities, to face my fears, and to find my voice. I had been given the opportunity to rebuild my life, to rediscover myself, and to find my own sense of purpose. And as I walked away from the courthouse, my inhaler in hand, I knew that I was ready for whatever came next. I was ready to take back my life, my air, and my sense of self. I was ready to breathe again, to live again, and to love again. The road to healing was long and winding, but I was determined to walk it. I was determined to find my way, to discover my own strength, and to rise above the pain. I was determined to take back control, to reclaim my life, and to find my own sense of peace. And as I walked away from the courthouse, I knew that I was not alone. I had my mother, my therapist, and my own inner strength to guide me. I had the power to heal, to grow, and to transform. And I was ready to take the first step, to breathe deeply, and to let go of the past. As I walked, the city streets seemed to come alive around me. The sounds, the smells, and the sights all seemed more vibrant, more intense, and more beautiful. I felt like I was seeing the world for the first time, like I was experiencing life in all its beauty and complexity. And I knew that this was just the beginning, that this was just the first step on my journey towards healing and recovery. I was ready to face whatever came next, to embrace the unknown, and to find my own sense of purpose. I was ready to breathe again, to live again, and to love again. And as I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, I knew that I was finally free. As I walked out of the courtroom, the warm sunlight on my face felt like a gentle hug, a sense of relief washing over me. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. And I knew that I had finally found my voice. The sound of the city outside was a gentle hum, a reminder that life was moving forward. And I was moving with it. I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment, the struggles and the pain. And I realized that revenge didn't have to be loud or violent. Sometimes, it's just about taking back control, about standing up for yourself and saying, I will not be silenced. I remembered the days when my brother would mock my asthma, when he would hide my inhaler and watch me struggle to breathe. I thought about the fear and the anxiety that had gripped me, the feeling of being trapped and helpless. But as I walked away from the courtroom, I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that my brother would face the consequences of his actions. Justice can be gentle, steady, and inevitable. And I knew that he would have to live with the weight of his own mistakes. As I reflected on the past, I began to see that my brother's actions were not just about me, but about his own struggles and demons. He had been a sensitive and dependent child. And as he grew older, he had begun to crave control and dominance. He had taken out his frustrations on me, on our family, and on the world around him. But in the end, it was his own actions that had led to his downfall. I felt a sense of sadness, knowing that my brother had thrown away his chance at a better life. But I also felt a sense of relief, knowing that I was free from his toxic influence. I thought about the people who had supported me along the way, my mother, the nurses, the police officers, and the judge. They had all played a role in my journey, and I was grateful for their help and their guidance. I realized that I was not alone, that there were people who cared about me and wanted to help. And I knew that I would always be grateful for that. As I walked through the city, I felt a sense of peace settling over me. I was finally free from the fear and the anxiety that had haunted me for so long. I was finally able to breathe, to live, to be myself. And I knew that no matter what the future held, I would face it with courage and with strength. I would take back my life, my air, and my voice. And I would never let anyone take them away from me again. I thought about the days ahead, the challenges and the opportunities that lay before me. I knew that I would have to rebuild my life, to find a new sense of purpose and meaning. But I was ready for that. I was ready to take on the world, to make a difference, and to leave my mark. And I knew that I would always carry the lessons of my past with me, the lessons of resilience, of courage, and of the power of the human spirit. As I looked out at the city, I felt a sense of wonder and awe. I felt a sense of connection to the world around me, to the people and the places that made it so vibrant and so alive. And I knew that I would always be a part of it, a thread in the intricate tapestry of human experience. I would weave my own story, my own narrative. And I would make it one of hope and of triumph. The city was a blur of sounds and colors, a kaleidoscope of emotions and experiences. And I was a part of it, a small but vital thread in the fabric of humanity. I was a survivor, a warrior, and a storyteller. And I would tell my story, my way, with every breath I took. I would take back my life, my air, and my voice. And I would never let anyone take them away from me again. In the end, it was not about revenge or justice, but about redemption and forgiveness. It was about finding peace and closure, and moving forward into a brighter future. And as I walked away from the courtroom, I knew that I had finally found my way. I had found my voice, my strength, and my courage. And I would use them to make a difference, to leave my mark, and to tell my story. The story of a girl who took back her breath, her life, and her voice. The story of a girl who rose above the ashes, and who found her own way to shine. As I stood outside the courtroom, the warm sunlight on my face felt like a gentle reminder that I'd finally found my voice. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. And I knew that I had to revisit the memories that shaped me and my brother. I looked back on our childhood, remembering the laughter and the love that we shared. Our small apartment was always filled with the smell of freshly baked cookies and the sound of our mother's gentle humming. I was the one who helped my brother with his homework, who made him his favorite meals, and who comforted him when he was scared. I was his rock, his confidant, and his protector. As I delved deeper into those memories, I realized that I raised my brother with love and care. But he made his own choices. But I couldn't change that. I couldn't help but wonder what had driven him to become the person he was today. Was it the absence of our father, the pressure to be strong? Or something else entirely? I didn't have the answers. But I knew that I had to let go of the guilt and the shame that had been weighing me down. I began to focus on my own healing and growth, on rediscovering the person I was before my brother's actions took a toll on my life. I remembered the way my brother used to look up to me, the way he'd follow me everywhere. And the way he'd cling to my leg when he was scared. I remembered the way I'd read him bedtime stories, the way I'd sing him lullabies. And the way I'd tuck him into bed. Those were the moments that made me feel like I was doing something right, like I was being a good sister. But as time went on, things started to change. My brother began to crave control, to assert his dominance over me and those around him. He started to make jokes about my asthma, to tease me about my inhaler, and to belittle me in front of others. I ignored it. I loved him. And I thought that he'd grow out of it. But he didn't. He only got worse. And I only got more scared. I started to walk on eggshells around him, never knowing what would trigger his next outburst. I started to doubt myself, to wonder if I was the one who was crazy. If I was the one who was overreacting. But deep down, I knew that I wasn't. I knew that I deserved to be treated with love and respect. And that my brother's behavior was not okay. As I stood there, reflecting on our childhood, I realized that I had been carrying around a lot of guilt and shame for far too long. I had been blaming myself for my brother's actions, for not being able to fix him, for not being able to change him. But I knew that I couldn't change him, that I couldn't fix him. All I could do was focus on myself, on my own healing and growth. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. And I knew that I was ready to let go of the past. I was ready to move on, to start anew. And to reclaim my life. The memories of our childhood still lingered. But they no longer held the same power over me. I saw them for what they were, memories, not definitions. I saw my brother for who he was, a complex, flawed human being, not a monster. And I saw myself for who I was, a strong, resilient woman, capable of overcoming even the darkest of challenges. I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a sense of closure. And a sense of new beginnings. I knew that I still had a long way to go. But I also knew that I was ready for whatever came next. I was ready to take back my life, to take back my breath. And to start living again. As I walked out of the courtroom, the sense of relief that washed over me was like a warm breeze on a summer day. I felt the weight of the past few years slowly lifting off my shoulders. And with it, the anxiety that had become my constant companion. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. And I knew that I was ready to start rebuilding my life. I began by taking back control of my asthma, something that had been dictated by my brother's actions for far too long. I started seeing a new doctor, one who specialized in asthma care. And we worked together to develop a treatment plan that was tailored to my needs. I learned how to recognize the early warning signs of an attack. And how to manage my symptoms in a way that gave me confidence and peace of mind. As I regained control over my health, I also started to rediscover the things that brought me joy. I moved into a new apartment, one that was filled with natural light and had a beautiful view of the city. I started taking art classes, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. I found solace in the creative process. And it became a way for me to express myself and work through my emotions. I also started to reconnect with old friends, people who had been supportive of me throughout the ordeal. We would meet for coffee or go for walks. And it was amazing how much laughter and joy could be found in those simple moments. I realized that I didn't have to face my challenges alone, and that having a support system made all the difference. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I started to feel a sense of peace and freedom that I had never experienced before. I knew that I was safe, and that my brother could no longer hurt me. I was finally able to breathe easily, without the constant fear of an asthma attack looming over me. But the most surprising thing that happened during this time was the sense of empathy I started to feel for my brother. I realized that he was struggling with his own demons, and that his actions had been a cry for help. I didn't excuse what he had done, but I started to understand that he was a complex person, with his own set of flaws and weaknesses. I remember one day, I was out on a walk, enjoying the fresh air and the sound of birds chirping, when I stumbled upon a quote that resonated deeply with me. It said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." I realized that I had been given a second chance, a chance to rise above the pain and the trauma, but to create a new life for myself. As I looked out at the world around me, I felt a sense of wonder and awe. I realized that life was full of possibilities, and that every day was a new opportunity to start again. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, and I knew that I was ready to face whatever came next. But as I stood there, basking in the warmth of my newfound freedom, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for my brother. Would he find his way? Or would he continue down a path of destruction? I didn't have the answers, but I knew that I had to keep moving forward, one step at a time. And as I took that first step, I felt a sense of excitement and trepidation, knowing that the journey ahead would be filled with twists and turns, but also with hope and possibility. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, and I knew that I was finally free. The courtroom was behind me, the verdict had been delivered, and I had emerged stronger, my voice louder than ever before. I thought back to the days when my brother's actions had taken my breath away, literally and figuratively. But I had taken it back, and with it, I had reclaimed my life. As I walked out of the courthouse, the warm sunlight on my face felt like a gentle reminder that I had fought for my life. And I had won. The sound of birds chirping and the rustling of leaves in the trees seemed to echo the sense of peace that had settled within me. I felt the weight of the past few years slowly lifting off my shoulders, and with it, the anxiety that had become my constant companion. I was no longer the same person who had been held hostage by my brother's actions, who had been forced to live in fear of not being able to breathe. I remembered the countless times I had to hide my inhaler, the times I had to sneak around just to get a breath of fresh air. But all of that was behind me now. I had taken back control, and with it, I had taken back my life. I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment, the struggles, the tears, the sleepless nights. But most of all, I thought about the realization that had hit me like a ton of bricks, that my brother's actions had been a cry for help, a desperate attempt to assert his dominance over me. As I reflected on the past, I realized that I had been so focused on surviving, on making it through each day, that I had never stopped to think about the why. Why had my brother felt the need to take my breath away? Why had he felt so threatened by my existence? The questions swirled in my mind, but I knew that I would never have the answers. All I knew was that I had taken back what was mine, and I had emerged stronger because of it. I thought about the people who had supported me along the way, my mother, the nurses, the police officers. They had all played a role in my journey, and I was grateful for their presence in my life. I thought about the days that followed the verdict, the days of silence, the days of reflection. I had spent so much time thinking about my brother, about his actions, about the pain he had caused me. But now, I was ready to think about myself. I was ready to think about my future, about the life I wanted to build, about the person I wanted to become. I was ready to take back my life, to reclaim my air, to breathe freely. I felt a sense of excitement, of anticipation. As I thought about the possibilities that lay ahead, I knew that I would always carry the scars of my past with me. But I also knew that I had the strength to overcome them. As I stood there, feeling the sun on my face, I whispered to myself, "He once took my breath from me. Today, I took it back." The words felt like a mantra, a reminder of the journey I had been on, of the strength I had found within myself. I knew that I would always carry these words with me, that I would always remember the day I took back my life. And with that, I took another deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, feeling alive, feeling free.